My head was splitting open. I pried my eyes open and stared at a ceiling I'd never seen before. A ridiculously ornate crystal chandelier stabbed at my retinas, and the throbbing in my skull cranked up a notch. This was not my dump of an apartment. The memory of last night was a thick, useless sludge like someone had taken a blender to my brain. I shifted, a groan escaping my lips, and felt a pins and needles sensation in my arm. It had been pinned under something all night. Something warm, something soft, curved in all the right places, and smelling faintly of something cool and expensive like night-blooming jasmine. A body. My brain blue-screened for a solid 3 seconds. Stiff as a board, I turned my head, inch by agonizing inch. A face so beautiful it seemed unreal came into view. Her skin was flawless porcelain, long lashes casting shadows on her cheeks in the morning light. Her lips were perfectly shaped but pressed into a firm line, even in sleep, radiating a stay the hell away vibe. Even unconscious, she was an ice sculpture, exquisitely carved and radiating a palpable chill. I swallowed, my throat sandpaper dry. What the hell happened last night? I racked my brain. It was my screw-up of a best friend Leo's birthday. He dragged me to some new cocktail lounge downtown. I remember pounding back whiskey sours like they were water. After that, nothing. A complete blank. So I'd gotten blackout drunk and slept with someone? My back hit the cold, hard headboard with a thud. My heart hammered against my ribs. I was screwed. Royally, epically screwed. As I debated whether to make a run for it now or wait for her to wake up, those long, dark lashes fluttered. She opened her eyes. And what eyes they were. There was no sleepy haze, just a clear, Arctic blue sharpness that seemed to analyze and dismiss me in the same instant. She glanced at the ceiling, then at me, her brow furrowing almost imperceptibly. The air in the room turned to solid ice. I think I stopped breathing. I swear, in my entire 24 years, I have never been in the presence of someone with such an intense aura. A single look from her made me feel like a criminal on trial. "Who are you?" she asked. Her voice was just like the rest of her, crisp and cold enough to cause frostbite. My name is Jay Carter," I stammered, my mind a chaotic whirl. She sat up, the silk comforter sliding from her shoulders to reveal the elegant line of her collarbone. She didn't seem to care, just gave me a clinical once-over for my messy hair down to my bare feet. "Last night," she stated, not a question, but a prompt for me to fill in the blanks. I was wasted. "I don't remember anything," I said, clinging to the desperate hope that this was all a huge misunderstanding. Maybe we just fell asleep talking. She said nothing. She simply threw back the comforter and got out of bed. My eyes instinctively darted to the white sheets, and a single, damning smear of crimson made my brain flatline. So much for just talking. Barefoot, she walked to the pile of clothes on the floor, picking up her things with an unhurried grace, as if what happened last night was a minor, forgettable inconvenience. Watching her, a prickle of familiarity ran down my spine. The sharp, stylishly short haircut, the lean but strong set of her shoulders. Then it hit me like a freight train. Victoria Sterling, the CEO of Sterling Global, the business world's reigning ice queen, a permanent fixture on the cover of Forbes, famous for her ruthless tactics and stone-cold demeanor. Oh my God, what I'd done. I was a guy who was 2 weeks late on a share of the rent, and I'd somehow ended up in bed with the most powerful, untouchable woman in New York City. The room started to spin. I honestly thought I might just die of sheer panic. Dressed in a tailored power suit, Victoria Sterling was once again the formidable titan of industry. She walked over to a desk, pulled a checkbook from her designer handbag, and scribbled something with a flourish. She tore it out and walked back to the bed. "Take it," she said, her tone devoid of all emotion. "And sign this NDA. As of this moment, last night never happened. Don't ever let me see you again." A check and a legal document floated down onto the comforter in front of me. I looked down. The number on the check had so many zeros after it, I lost count. It was more money than I'd ever seen in my life. Enough to finally open the small restaurant I'd always dreamed of, and then some. But my heart felt like it had been stabbed with an icicle. So that's all I was to her. A problem to be paid off. A stain to be removed. I don't know where the courage came from. Maybe it was the lingering bravado from the alcohol, Or maybe it was the last shred of my pathetic self-respect kicking in. I looked up at her blank, expressionless face, and I laughed. Ms. Sterling, I think you've got the wrong idea. I picked up the check. Then right in front of her, I slowly, deliberately ripped it into tiny pieces. I don't need your money. I tossed the confetti of paper into a nearby wastebasket, then threw back the covers to find my own clothes. I'm sorry about last night, too. And don't worry, I'm not the kind of guy who kisses and tells. Once I walk out that door, we're strangers. For the first time, an expression other than cold indifference appeared on her face. A flicker of shock, a hint of disbelief. She had probably never met a man who would turn down her money. I threw on my clothes, not even bothering with my shoelaces, desperate to escape the suffocating atmosphere of the room. Wait, she said suddenly. I paused at the door, my back to her. Your name is Jake Carter? Yeah. What do you do? A bitter smile touched my lips. Unemployed. With that, I pulled the door open and practically ran out, feeling her icy gaze drilling into my back the entire way. Bursting out of the hotel lobby, the morning sun blinded me. I gasped for fresh air, my heart still trying to beat its way out of my chest. Jake Carter, a 24-year-old nobody, had just slept with Victoria Sterling, and then ripped up her $250,000 check. If Leo ever found out, he'd be telling this story for the rest of his life. I just wanted the ground to open up and swallow me whole. I stumbled back to the crappy apartment I shared with Leo in Queens, feeling like a ghost. As I opened the door, Leo poked his head out of his room, his hair a bird's nest, eyes bleary. Jake, man, where the hell were you? You weren't answering your phone. Don't even ask. I collapsed onto the lumpy sofa, completely drained. What happened? You get abducted by aliens. Leo plopped down next to me, his face a mask of shameless curiosity. I buried my face in a throw pillow and mumbled a heavily redacted version of my adventure, leaving out the protagonist's identity and just calling her a really rich woman. When I finished, Leo was silent for a full 30 seconds. I braced myself for him to laugh or call me an idiot. Instead, he slapped his thigh and yelled, "Holy crap, Jake. Dude, you hit the jackpot." I lifted my head, confused. What jackpot? I'm lucky I made it out of there alive. You don't get it. Leo was practically vibrating, his eyes gleaming with the kind of wisdom that only comes from binge-watching 1,000 hours of romantic comedies. Think about it. This is the classic setup. The down-on-his-luck everyman and the billionaire ice queen. She offers you money, and you turn it down? You know what that is? That's the ultimate power move. You showed her you can't be bought. She's definitely intrigued now. She's probably got a team of private investigators running a background check on you as we speak. My eyes started to twitch. You've seen way too many movies. She's a CEO, not an idiot. She just thinks I'm some psycho who doesn't know what's good for him. No, Leo said, wagging his finger like a seasoned guru. Trust me, this isn't over. She's going to find you. And when she does, you just have to. Ding dong. The doorbell cut him off mid-sentence. Leo and I exchanged a look. Who would be here this early? I'll get it, he said, scrambling to the door. He opened it and froze, his jaw dropping so far it nearly hit the floor. I craned my neck to see. Standing in our doorway was a mountain of a man in a sharp black suit and sunglasses, flanked by two more guys dressed exactly the same. They looked like they'd walked straight out of a mob movie. Can we help you? Leo's voice was a squeak. The man in the lead gently pushed him aside and stepped into our apartment, his eyes scanning the room before landing on me. Mr. Jake Carter. His voice was a flat monotone. My stomach dropped. So soon? Were they here to take me on a one-way trip to the bottom of the East River? I forced myself to my feet. That's me. Who are you? Ms. Sterling sent us. Hearing her name, my knees went weak. Beside me, Leo's face was a mixture of terror and an ecstatic, "I told you so." What? What does she want? I asked, my voice tight. Ms. Sterling requests your presence. No. The word flew out of my mouth. I wanted nothing more to do with that woman. The man seemed to have expected this. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folder, holding out to me. This is from Ms. Sterling. Suspicious, I took it and opened it. My eyes went wide. It was a contract. Personal chef employment contract. Party A, Victoria Sterling. Party B, Jake Carter. It stated that I was to be hired as Ms. Sterling's personal nutritional consultant. Basically, her private chef. The job was to prepare 3 meals a day for her, and the salary, listed in bold, made my breath catch in my throat. $50,000 per month. I rubbed my eyes, sure I was hallucinating. 50 grand? A month? You couldn't make that much robbing a bank. Leo leaned over my shoulder to look, then let out a choked gasp. Jake, 50 GS a month. She's not hiring a chef. She's adopting a full-grown son. My head was spinning. What was Victoria Sterling playing at? First a check, now a ridiculously overpriced employment contract. What does she possibly want from me? The fact that I can make a decent grilled cheese? Why? I looked up at the stoic man. Ms. Sterling has some digestive issues. Her doctor recommended a diet of simple, home-cooked meals, he answered without a flicker of expression. Our research indicates you were formerly an apprentice at a private kitchen and have some knowledge of holistic cuisine. I was stunned. They'd already dug that up? It was true. I'd studied under a great old-school chef for a few years, but I'd quit that life. All I wanted now was to open my own little greasy spoon and make a living. I'm not interested, I said again. The money felt radioactive. The man's expression didn't change, but I sensed a shift. Mr. Carter, I'm just following orders. If you refuse, Ms. Sterling may be forced to take other measures. The words were bland, but the threat was crystal clear. My heart sank, right? She was Victoria Sterling. She could ruin a guy like me with a single phone call. Get me fired from any job, get me blacklisted, make it impossible for me to live in this city. I looked at the contract, then around our dingy apartment. A bitter taste filled my mouth. Jake, take it. Are you crazy? Leo was practically jumping up and down beside me. This is a once-in-a-lifetime shot. You've been trying to save up for your restaurant, right? 1 year of this, and you're set for life. Plus, it's the perfect opportunity to get close to her. You know, I knew he was an idiot, but he had a point. My dream was my own place, cooking food my way. The reality was, I couldn't even scrape together enough for a security deposit. $50,000 a month. I took a deep breath, feeling like I was signing my life away. Fine, I'll sign. I followed the men in black to a sleek, black Bentley. Leo stood on the curb, waving frantically. Go get you, Jakey. Make her fall for you. You're the hero of us slackers. I was so embarrassed my toes were trying to dig a hole through the floor of the car. The Bentley glided through the city and up into a gated community nestled in the hills, overlooking the Hudson River. Every mansion was a work of art, tucked away behind lush trees and long, private driveways. I was led into one of them. The house was aggressively minimalist and modern, all black, white, and gray, with hard lines and no personal touches. The space was cavernously large and just as cold, completely devoid of any lived-in warmth. Just like its owner, Victoria Sterling was sitting on a massive sofa in the living room, scrolling through something on a tablet. She'd changed into a silk lounge dress, but her powerful aura was still on full blast. Sit, she said, not looking up. I perched nervously on the very edge of an armchair, as far away from her as possible. You've read the contract? She asked. I have. Any problems? Yeah, a big one, I said, mustering my courage. Ms. Sterling, I'm just a regular guy. I only know how to cook basic, home-style food. I can't accept this kind of salary. She finally looked up, her cool blue eyes locking onto mine. I pay you, you do a job. It's a fair transaction. You don't need to feel guilty about it. There was that word again. Transaction. In this woman's world, it seemed everything had a price tag. I have one condition, I said. Name it. I'm only here to cook. Nothing else is part of the job. And this is a job, not indentured servitude. I have my own life. The corner of Victoria's mouth seemed to twitch, a phantom of a smile so fast I thought I'd imagined it. Agreed, she said, nodding. The kitchen is over there. The refrigerator is stocked. I like some soup for lunch. Then she looked back down at her tablet, dismissing me completely. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding and headed for the kitchen. The kitchen was bigger than my entire apartment. It was filled with top-of-the-line, stainless steel appliances that gleamed as if they'd never been used. I opened a giant Sub-Zero refrigerator. It was packed with gourmet ingredients, Wagyu beef, French oysters, you name it. But it was also filled with pre-packaged meals and instant noodles. I sighed. The woman really didn't know how to take care of herself. I found some high-quality rice and an organic chicken. I decided to make her the simplest, most comforting thing I could think of, a classic chicken and rice soup. I rinsed the rice, diced some carrots and celery, poached the chicken until it was tender, then shredded the meat. I did every step with meticulous care. This was my craft, the one thing I was truly good at. As the soup began to simmer, the rich aroma of chicken and herbs filled the sterile kitchen, and for the first time, I felt a sense of control. An hour later, I brought a steaming bowl of soup and some freshly baked crackers to the dining table. Ms. Sterling, lunch is ready. Victoria put down her tablet and came over. She looked at the simple bowl of soup, her brow knitting together again. This is it. Yep, chicken and rice soup. It's good for your stomach, I said flatly. She picked up a spoon, hesitated for a second, then took a small sip. The moment the soup touched her lips, I saw her whole body go still. Then she took another spoonful, and another. She ate quickly but gracefully, and in less than 5 minutes, the bowl was empty. She placed her spoon down, dabbed her mouth with a napkin, and said nothing. But her eyes seemed less icy than before. I have no plans this afternoon. You can go. Be back by 7 to make dinner, she said, then turned and went upstairs. I stared at the empty bowl with a strange feeling in my chest. Maybe this woman wasn't made of stone after all. At least her stomach was honest. The next few days fell into a strange, rigid routine. I'd arrive at Victoria's house at 9 to make breakfast. Then I was free until I had to be back by 7 to make dinner. Victoria barely spoke. Our conversations were limited to her telling me what she wanted and me cooking it. What do you want to eat today? Something light. Pasta? Fine. She was like an emotionless machine, and I was the technician in charge of refueling her. But small things were starting to change. The prepackaged meals in her fridge disappeared, replaced by the fresh vegetables and meats on the shopping list I gave her security detail. She started being on time for meals. Every time I set the food on the table, she would appear as if on cue. And sometimes, after finishing a bowl of soup I'd simmered for hours, I'd see a fleeting expression on her face that could almost be described as contentment. One evening, I made my usual 3 dishes and a soup. Victoria came downstairs looking exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes. Trouble at the office? I asked casually. She shot me a look, but didn't answer, just started eating in silence. I shrugged, deciding not to press my luck. Halfway through the meal, her phone rang. She answered, and her tone instantly became sharp as a razor. What do you mean you can't find him? I don't care what you have to do. You get that data restored by tonight. If you can't, your entire tech division is fired. She slammed the phone down, her face a thundercloud. She pinched the bridge of her nose, all appetite gone. I'm not hungry, she said, pushing her chair back to go upstairs. Wait, I called out. You should eat something. It's not good to skip meals. She stopped and turned back, a complicated look in her eyes. Are you concerned about me? I'm just doing my job, I said, my face unreadable. If the client gets sick, it might affect my paycheck. She was silent for a few seconds. Then, to my surprise, she sat back down and slowly finished everything on her plate. After dinner, instead of disappearing upstairs, she sank onto the living room sofa, closing her eyes wearily. I cleaned up the kitchen, and on a whim, I brewed a pot of calming chamomile tea and brought it to her. Here, this might help you relax. She opened her eyes, surprised to see the tea. You know how to brew tea? My old mentor taught me a few things, I said, handing her a cup. She took it and took a sip. As the warm liquid went down, her tense shoulders seemed to relax a little. Thank you, she said softly. It was the first time she'd ever thanked me. A strange warmth spread through my chest. Don't mention it. Part of the job. Silence fell in the huge living room, broken only by the ticking of a grandfather clock. A major project. Our data was targeted in a corporate espionage attack. It's all gone, she said suddenly, as if talking to herself. If we can't recover it, the company stands to lose over $1 billion. My blood ran cold. $1 billion? I couldn't even comprehend that much money. I looked at her tired profile and, for the first time, felt that this untouchable woman had it pretty tough. It'll be okay, I said, the only lame platitude I could think of. She gave a humorless laugh. Okay, the market is a battlefield, Jake. One wrong step and you're finished. Then get some sleep, I said, looking her straight in the eye. You can't solve a billion-dollar problem when you're running on empty. You're not a robot. She just stared at me, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. After a long moment, she gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Okay, I didn't leave that night. I slept in the guest room, though I barely closed my eyes. I don't know if it was pity or something else, but the thought of leaving her alone in that vast, cold house felt wrong. The next morning, I was jolted awake by the frantic ringing of my phone. It was Victoria's assistant. Mr. Carter, it's terrible. Ms. Sterling, she's missing. The words hit me like a punch to the gut, all sleepiness vanishing instantly. Missing? What do you mean? Isn't she at home? We tracked her phone. The last signal was from an abandoned factory on the outskirts of the city. We think she's been kidnapped. The assistant's voice was choked with tears. An abandoned factory? Kidnapped. My first thought was of her business rival. For $1 billion project, some people would do anything. Did you call the police? I asked, scrambling to pull on my clothes. Yes, but we haven't heard anything from the kidnappers. Mr. Carter, you were the last one with her. Do you know anything? No, I was in the guest room. My mind was racing, panic clawing in my throat. I hung up, and without a second's hesitation, I ran out of the mansion, flagged down the security guard's car, and told him to drive to the factory the assistant mentioned. I didn't know why I was going. I was just a cook. I'd be useless in a fight, but my body was moving on its own. All I could see was Victoria's exhausted face. She was cold and difficult, but she wasn't a bad person. She was just lonely. The car screeched to a halt on a dirt road. This is as far as I can go, sir. I paid him, jumped out, and sprinted toward the dilapidated factory complex in the distance. The area was already cordoned off with police tape. A few squad cars were parked nearby, their lights flashing silently. A young officer stopped me. Sir, this is an active crime scene. You can't go in. I'm a friend of Victoria Sterling's. I said desperately, is she okay? The cop looked at me and shook his head. We're still searching. No sign of her yet. My heart sank. Just then my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered it. Jake Carter, a cold male voice on the other end said. Who is this? That's not important. What's important is that I have Victoria Sterling, the man said with a smug chuckle. If you want her to live, you come alone. And don't try anything stupid, or you'll be picking her up in a body bag. The line went dead. I stood there, my phone clenched in my hand, my palms slick with cold sweat. Why would the kidnappers call me? How did they even know who I was? With no time to think, I immediately told the nearest officer what had happened. A middle-aged detective listened, his face grim. You can't go. It's too dangerous. But they have her. I yelled. We'll get her back. But we can't have you walking into a trap. I looked at the detective, then at the silent, menacing factory. My mind was at war with itself. Logic told me he was right. I'd just be another hostage. But my gut screamed that I couldn't just stand here and do nothing. Take this, the detective said suddenly, pressing something that looked like a button into my hand. It's a GPS tracker. We'll be right behind you. Your job is to stall for time and keep yourself and the hostage safe. Do not provoke them. I took the tracker and nodded grimly. Following the kidnapper's instructions, I walked alone into the abandoned factory. The inside was dim, the air thick with the smell of rust and decay. I'm here. Where are you? I shouted, my voice echoing in the vast space. Keep walking, a voice called from deeper inside. I moved forward, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. In the center of a large, open workshop, I saw them. Victoria was tied to a chair, her mouth covered with duct tape. Her face was pale, but her eyes were defiant. Standing around her were several men. The one in charge was horribly familiar. Caden Pierce, Victoria's arch-rival. Pierce? It was you. I gasped. Surprised? Caden sneered, his face twisted with malice. You didn't think I'd let you get away with that project, did you, Victoria? Not only am I getting it back, but I'm going to destroy you. He stepped in front of her and grabbed her chin, his eyes filled with a sick leer. Imagine the headlines tomorrow. Billionaire CEO of Sterling Global found dead in a warehouse with her pet chef. What do you think that will do to your stock price? Victoria's eyes blazed with fury. Pierce, you're insane. I yelled. This is a felony. Felony? He laughed, as if it were the funniest joke in the world. In this world, money is the law. Once I've destroyed you and your company, no one will dare say a word against me. He took a knife from one of his thugs and traced its edge along Victoria's cheek. Such a beautiful face. It'd be a shame to mess it up. Don't, I screamed. As the knife started to descend, a surge of adrenaline hit me. I lunged forward, slamming my body into Pierce and knocking him off balance. You son of a bitch, he roared, enraged, and swung the knife at me. I dodged, but the blade sliced deep into my forearm. Blood instantly welled up, dark and hot. Seeing me hurt, Victoria's eyes widened in horror. She started struggling violently against her restraints, muffled screams coming from behind the tape. Pierce's goons closed in on me. Knowing it was over, I planted myself in front of Victoria, ready to take whatever was coming. Just then, the massive factory doors burst open with a deafening crash. Blinding floodlights poured in, and a voice boomed over a megaphone. NYPD, nobody move. Hands on your head. The cavalry had arrived. Caden Pierce and his crew were quickly subdued. I clutched my bleeding arm and slumped to the floor, gasping for air. A female officer rushed over to Victoria, cutting her free. The first thing Victoria did, before even checking herself for injuries, was scramble over to me. Are you okay? She asked, her voice trembling, her eyes red-rimmed and frantic. I'm fine. Just a scratch. I managed forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. She stared at the deep gash in my arm, her lips pressed into a thin, white line. Then she did something that stunned everyone in the room. She tore off a long strip from the bottom of her expensive silk dress and, with clumsy, desperate movements, wrapped it tightly around my arm. You, I started. Don't talk, she mumbled, her head down. I saw a single, glistening tear fall from her eye and land on the back of my hand. It was scalding hot. She was crying. The Ice Queen was crying. My heart felt like it had been hit by a wrecking ball, aching and soft all at once. The paramedics arrived quickly. As they loaded me onto a stretcher, Victoria stayed right by my side, her hand clutching mine so tightly her knuckles were white. Her hand was cold, but her grip was iron. At the hospital, a doctor stitched at my arm. Victoria stood over his shoulder the entire time, her expression more pain than mine. Will it scar? She asked him. It's a deep cut. There will likely be a faint scar, the doctor replied. Victoria's expression grew even darker. Afterward, I was settled into a private VIP suite. Soon after, Victoria's grandfather, a surprisingly energetic old man named Arthur Sterling, stormed into the room. He looked me over, then turned on Victoria. This is absurd. Utterly absurd. Why didn't you call me? If it hadn't been for Jake, do you have any idea what could have happened? Victoria just stood there with her head bowed, looking like a chastised child. After dressing down his granddaughter, Mr. Sterling walked over to my bed, his face softening into a kind smile. Young man, we owe you a great debt. The Sterling family is in your debt. Sir, you don't have to say that. I just did what anyone would have done, I said quickly. What anyone would have done, he repeated, nodding with approval. You have courage and integrity, a damn sight more than most of the feckless young men I see these days. He turned back to Victoria. Vicky, Jake was injured because of you. You're not going anywhere. You will stay here and take care of him until he is fully recovered. Understood. Grandpa. Victoria looked up, shocked. What? You have a problem with that? The old man said, his eyes narrowing. No, Grandpa, she mumbled, looking at the floor. I lay in the bed, watching this surreal scene unfold, feeling like I was in a fever dream. The billionaire CEO of Sterling Global was now my personal, round-the-clock nurse. Not even Leo could write a script this crazy. And so began the strangest hospital stay of my life. Victoria really did stay. She pulled up a chair next to my bed and worked on her tablet, but every hour, like clockwork, she would stop and ask, "Do you need some water? Or does the wound hurt?" She was more attentive than the actual nurses. The first day, I was a nervous wreck. Ms. Sterling, you really don't have to do this. I'm fine on my own, I tried to tell her. Call me Victoria, she said, not looking up from her screen. Or Vicky, she added. I nearly choked on my own spit. Vicky, no way in hell. Ms. Sterling, this isn't appropriate. What's not appropriate about it? She finally met my eyes. You saved my life. I'm taking care of you. It's perfectly logical. I had no response to that. When dinner arrived, it was standard hospital fare. Victoria took one look at the tray and scowled. Is this supposed to be food? Without another word, she pulled out her phone and made a call. 30 minutes later, the head chef from one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city arrived, personally delivering a thermal container. Ms. Sterling, as requested, a broth of squab, simmered for 6 hours with the finest ingredients. Victoria opened it, poured a bowl, and handed it to me. Drink this. It's good for you. I looked at the soup, then at her, a complicated mix of emotions swirling inside me. Thanks. Drink, she commanded. I drank. It was delicious, but I found myself thinking it wasn't as good as the simple chicken soup I made. That night, as I was getting ready for sleep, I asked cautiously, Ms. Sterling, Victoria, aren't you going home? I don't feel right leaving you alone, she said simply. But you have to work tomorrow. Everything at the office is handled. She pointed to the small cot against the wall. I'm sleeping here. I was officially out of arguments. In the middle of the night, I woke up thirsty. I tried to sit up to get some water, but the movement pulled at my stitches and I let out a sharp hiss of pain. Instantly, the figure on the cot stirred. Victoria was by my bedside in a second, her voice laced with concern. What is it? Does it hurt? No, I just wanted some water. Without a word, she poured a glass of water, carefully put a straw in it, and held it to my lips. I looked at her face, so close to mine in the pale moonlight. Her skin looked even more luminous, and her usually cold eyes were filled with genuine worry. My heart skipped a beat. Thanks, I whispered after I finished. Go back to sleep. She tucked the blanket around me, her movements a little stiff but surprisingly gentle. Lying there, breathing her faint, cool scent, I couldn't fall back asleep. The next day, Leo showed up with a fruit basket. He walked in, saw Victoria sitting by my bed peeling an apple, and froze solid. He looked from her to me and back again, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. And you are? Victoria asked coolly. My friend Leo, I said, embarrassed. Hello, she said with a slight nod. Leo looked like he'd been zapped by a taser. He robotically placed the basket on the table, then tiptoed over to my bed and whispered, Jake, what's going on? Did you actually do it? Did you win her over? He was whispering, but in the quiet room, his voice was perfectly clear. Victoria's hand, holding the apple, paused mid-peel. My face flushed beet red. I wanted to crawl under the sheets and disappear. What are you talking about? I hissed. Jake, Victoria said suddenly. She finished cutting the apple into neat slices, stuck a toothpick in one, and held it out to me. Eat. Then, she looked up at a completely dumbfounded Leo and said calmly, I'm pursuing him. Is there a problem? I choked, spraying a half-chewed piece of apple across the bedsheets. Leo looked like he'd been struck by lightning. Pursuing? He stammered. Ms. Sterling, you're not kidding, are you? I never kid, Victoria said, her tone flat, but her words were like a nuclear bomb. I coughed so hard I saw stars, my face turning a deep shade of purple. What was this woman talking about? Victoria, completely unfazed, grabbed a napkin and wiped my mouth with a practiced ease that made it seem like we'd been doing this for years. Your friend seems surprised, she said, looking at me, a question in her eyes. What could I say? Forget Leo. I was about to have a heart attack myself. Leo left 10 minutes later in a daze, looking at me with an expression of pure, unadulterated awe, as if I were a god walking among mortals. After he left, the room was quiet again. I stared at this woman who was now intently Googling soup recipes on her tablet, and my world felt like it had been turned upside down. Ms. Sterling. Victoria, she corrected. Victoria, I said, the name feeling strange on my tongue. Were you serious just now? About what? About pursuing me. She looked up, meeting my gaze directly. What do you think? Her stare made my heart flutter nervously. I looked away. I think you're probably just trying to repay a debt. You don't have to do this. I didn't save you so that you would. I know, she cut me off. You saved me because you're a good person. I'm pursuing you because I like you. Like me? My brain shut down again. What do you like about me? I asked numbly. I'm broke. I have no connections. I'm average looking, and I'm lazy. What do you like about me? She countered, turning the question back on me. I was stunned into silence. What did I like about her? Her ridiculously beautiful face. Her fortune? No, it wasn't that. Images flashed through my mind. The look of surprise on her face when she first tasted my soup. The way she let her guard down and showed her exhaustion. The single tear she shed for me. The clumsy way she bandaged my arm and tucked me in. I realized, I think I was actually starting to like this ice queen. Seeing my silence, a flicker of disappointment crossed her face. It's okay, she said, looking back down at her tablet. You can take your time to think about it. I can wait. Seeing her try to act tough, my heart melted. On impulse, I reached out with my good hand and took hers. It was cool to the touch, and she flinched slightly when I held it. I took a deep breath, feeling like I was using up all the courage I had. I do not like you. It was probably the lamest confession in the history of romance. But Victoria's head snapped up, and her eyes lit up with a brilliance that outshone the sun. For the very first time, her lips curved into a genuine, breathtaking smile. Okay, she said, squeezing my hand tightly. I know. In that moment, I felt my heart, which had been empty for so long, finally feel full and warm. My arm healed quickly under Victoria's. Attentive care. Mr. Sterling visited a few more times. Seeing his granddaughter either feeding me or fluffing my pillows, he would beam, his gaze on me growing more and more like I was already his grandson-in-law. On the day I was discharged, Victoria came to pick me up. She drove herself in a surprisingly understated white sedan. Where to? Your place? She asked. Yeah, I need to go pack my stuff. No need, she said calmly, navigating through traffic. I already took care of your lease. Your things have been moved to my house. I just stared at her. What? When did you? Yesterday. Did you even ask me? I was exasperated, but also a little amused. As my boyfriend, I believe it is your duty to live with me, she stated, completely serious. Boyfriend. The word sounded so strange coming from her. I sighed. Victoria, don't you think we're moving a little fast? Fast? She glanced at me. We've already done the most intimate thing two people can do. This is just moving in. She had me there. I was never going to win an argument with this woman. When we got back to her sterile mansion, I noticed a few changes. There was a new, ridiculously comfortable-looking beanbag chair in the living room, with a pillow of my favorite video game character on it. A small, green succulent sat on the coffee table. The house had a flicker of life. What's all this? Your friend Leo said you liked these things, she said, her tone a little stiff. I thought they were acceptable. I looked at her trying so hard to be casual, and my heart warmed. This was just her awkward way of showing she cared. My belongings had been moved into the guest room next to the master suite. But I knew, with Victoria's particular brand of logic, that arrangement wouldn't last long. Sure enough, that night, I was invited into the master bedroom. Her reason: the guest bed isn't good for your recovery. I looked at the giant bed where we'd first met and felt my face get hot. You take that side. I'll take this one, she instructed, drawing an invisible line down the middle of the mattress. I dutifully got in. With the lights off, the room was pitch black. I could hear the soft, steady sound of her breathing next to me. Jake, she said suddenly. Yeah. What are your plans? For the future. Plans? I thought for a second. I guess. Open a small restaurant. Be my own boss. Cook the food I want to cook. It had always been my dream. Simple, and until now, impossibly far away. I'll help you, she said. No. I replied immediately. This is my thing. I want to do it myself. In the darkness, I felt her turn to face me. Okay, she said, not pushing. But can I be your restaurant's first and only lifelong VIP customer? I smiled. Of course. It will be an honor to have you, Ms. Sterling. Call me Vicky. Okay, Vicky. Good. We didn't say anything else, but a comfortable, peaceful silence settled over us. I fell asleep faster than I had in years. Maybe it was because I knew I wasn't alone anymore. Living together was more interesting than I'd imagined. Victoria was a complete disaster at domestic life. She didn't know how to use the washing machine and turned all my white t-shirts pink. She tried to cook for me once and nearly set the $1 million kitchen on fire. She couldn't tell the difference between salt and sugar. When I had a cold, she confidently tried to make me a hot toddy and use salt instead of sugar. I will never forget that taste. Every time she messed something up and looked at me with that frustrated, helpless expression, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The ruthless queen of the business world was, at home, a clumsy girl who needed to be taken care of. The contrast only made me like her more. And I, in turn, became the full-time house husband. I cooked all her meals, turning her into a food snob who now refused to eat anything I didn't make. I cleaned the house, slowly transforming it from a cold museum into a warm, comfortable home. And I was in charge of keeping her company, watching boring financial news with her, watching her favorite pretentious art films in the home theater, sitting with her on the balcony in the sun. Our relationship deepened in the quiet moments of everyday life. She was no longer the intimidating Ms. Sterling, and I was no longer just her cook. We were like any other couple. We argued, we gave each other the silent treatment, but mostly we just held each other close. One day, as I was prepping dinner, Victoria came up and wrapped her arms around me from behind. She rested her chin on my shoulder, her voice a low murmur. "Jake." What's up?" I asked, still chopping vegetables. "Come with me somewhere tomorrow." "Where?" "My family's estate. My grandpa wants to see you." My hand froze over the cutting board. "Meet the family? Already?" I'm not ready," I stammered. "You don't have to be ready," she whispered in my ear. "Just be yourself. He'll love you." She paused, then added, "Besides, he's a big fan of your cheesecake." My heart skipped. So that's why she'd had me make that cheesecake last week. She had secretly taken it to her grandfather because he'd mentioned offhand that he liked it. This woman. I turned around to face her. "Okay," I said with a firm nod. "I'll go." The Sterling family estate was a gorgeous, old-money mansion in the countryside, all stone walls and ivy, with sprawling lawns and ancient oak trees. I walked beside Victoria, clutching a box of homemade pastries, my palms sweating. Mr. Sterling was sitting at a stone table in the garden, playing chess with another elderly gentleman. He saw us and waved us over with a grin. "There you are. Come sit." "Grandpa," Victoria said, walking over and refilling his tea. "And who is this?" the other man asked, his sharp eyes appraising me. "This is Jake. He's Vicky's friend, Mr. Sterling said, drawing out the last word with a knowing twinkle in his eye. I quickly bowed my head. "It's a pleasure to meet you, sir." "Jake, relax, son. Have a seat, Mr. Sterling said, gesturing to an empty chair. I sat down stiffly, feeling like I was being interrogated. "I hear you're quite the chef," the other man said suddenly. "I know a little," I answered humbly. Young people these days, all obsessed with their fusion cuisine and sushi. They have no respect for the classics," the man lamented, shaking his head. "Arthur, this future grandson-in-law of yours is a rare breed." "Grandson-in-law?" A faint blush appeared on Victoria's cheeks. "Mr. Chun, don't tease," she mumbled. "I'm not teasing the man, Mr. Chun laughed. "I like this young man. He has honest eyes and a steady hand. Not like those flashy fools you see today. Vicky, you've got good taste." I never expected to get such a glowing review. I later found out that Mr. Chun was one of the country's most respected food critics and Mr. Sterling's oldest friend. A good word from him was worth more than 3 Michelin stars. We had lunch at the estate. The family chef prepared a lavish feast, but all Mr. Sterling and Mr. Chun wanted to talk to me about was cooking. We discussed everything from knife skills to flavor pairings. It was the one subject I was an expert in, and I slowly began to relax. Victoria sat beside me the whole time, quietly putting food on my plate, her eyes shining with a soft, proud light I'd never seen before. After lunch, Mr. Sterling asked to speak with me alone in his study. I braced myself for the "here's a check, stay away from my granddaughter's" speech. Instead, he handed me a credit card. "Jake, there's $1 million on this." "It's not a gift, it's a loan," he said, his eyes sharp and wise. "Vicky told me you want to open your own restaurant. A man needs his own purpose. Take this and build your dream. No pressure. Pay me back when you can." I was speechless. "Mr. Sterling, I can't take this." "You have to," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. "This isn't charity. It's an investment. I trust my judgment, and I trust my granddaughters." He clapped me on the shoulder. "Work hard. Don't let us down." When I came out of the study, my head was still spinning. The thin piece of plastic in my hand felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Victoria was waiting for me. "What did my grandpa say?" she asked. I showed her the card. She smiled. I knew it. Vicky, I can't. Take it, she said, taking my hand in hers. It's his way of giving you his approval, and it's my way of supporting you. Jake, go do what you were meant to do. Whether you succeed or fail, I'll be right here. I looked at her, my eyes getting misty. What did I ever do to deserve a woman like this? I squeezed her hand and nodded. Okay. 6 months later, on a quiet side street downtown, a small restaurant called the Carter Canteen had its soft opening. It was small with only 5 tables. I designed the interior myself. Warm wood, soft lighting, cozy and inviting. I did no advertising. On the first day, I had only one customer, Victoria. She was dressed in jeans and a simple sweater, sitting by the window, looking like a normal girl from the neighborhood. Hey, chef, can I get a menu? She called out, a radiant smile on her face. What can I get for you? Everything's on the house for the VIP, I said, sliding into the chair opposite her. In that case, I'll have the chef special. You got it. I went in my kitchen and tied on my apron. Sunlight streamed through the window, warming my back. I made her the simplest thing I knew, egg fried rice. Every grain of rice was perfectly separate, coated in golden egg with flecks of green scallion. I brought the bowl out to her. Well, she took a bite and her eyes lit up. It's perfect, she whispered. She ate like she was starving, a look of pure bliss on her face. Watching her, my heart felt full to bursting. From a slacker who just wanted to get by, to a restaurant owner. From a ridiculous one-night stand, to this. The past 6 months have been a dream. But the weight of the spatula in my hand and the beautiful, smiling woman in front of me told me it was all real. After she finished, Victoria insisted on doing the dishes. I let her, knowing it was pointless to argue. I leaned against the kitchen doorway, watching her make a complete mess, splashing soap and water everywhere. The golden light of the setting sun framed her, making her glow. This, I thought, is what happiness feels like. Jake, she said suddenly, turning around, a speck of foam on her cheek. Yeah, I love you. She said it, and then her face turned bright red. I smiled, walked over, and wrapped my arms around her from behind, kissing the top of her head. I love you too. My life didn't really start until the day I met her, and our story was just beginning. End.